Welcome back to Big Sky Buckets. I'm Big Sky, and today we're doing power rankings. Before I said we were going to either do it weekly or bi-weekly. I think bi-weekly is better. More games being played, more information, statistics, all of that. Teams get to rise a little bit more, teams get to fall a little bit more, and that's just better content in general. If you keep seeing the same power rankings in general, or just like one team slides down and one team slides up, that's just not as good. But today, we're getting back to that going into week 6. Before we get started, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate every subscription as I get this up and going, and I would really appreciate all the support. So like, comment, let me know what your thoughts are down below. And if you're an audio only listener, give it a rate, give it a listen, and let's get into it. So based on going into week 4, that was the first time I did power rankings for this season. There was one team that fell out of these top 16 teams. So just to clarify, I'm doing basically the top 8 in the East and top 8 in the West collectively together based on what teams would make it to the playoffs today. So honorable mentions and teams that fell out entirely. So my honorable mentions are the Pelicans and the Cavaliers. Cavaliers at 500, we're not going to make it. And the Pelicans I really thought would, but last night they lost to Utah, so that did not help. They still are above 500, which is very nice, but there's a lot of teams above 500 in the West. So they come in at 9th in the West currently because of certain teams they've lost to and all of that, etc. But the team that fell out completely is the struggling Golden State Warriors. And I think that's acceptable currently. I do think they'll make it back in here, but they have a lot of issues currently. Steph is really having to carry the Andrew Wiggins drop-off. Most everyone knows by now that Klay Thompson is not the player he once was. But even now, it's more of sometimes you get flashes of the star that he was, or the role player starring in his role. But now he's just kind of a role player. Really, he's really eager to try and get a new paycheck, like one final contract. And in doing so, he's taking a lot of bad shots, and there's just not enough offensive help. It's funny. The fluctuation that I've gone through when kind of overreacting to this team was at the very beginning of the season, that first opening night, I was like, there's not enough offensive help, and then they found it, and then they lost it, and I think that inconsistency offensively is what's killing them. But they have fallen out completely, so let's start at number 16. And I really, 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 really wanted a reason to not put this team in the top 16. This is the team I ranted about yesterday, or day before, like whenever that the episode came out this morning. But the Atlanta Hawks, and the only reason they're in here is because they would slot in at number 8 because they are still above 500 because they beat the Wizards last night in a convincing fashion. Here's the bad news: Jalen Johnson, one of their best players, one of my favorite players to watch on this team, has now injured his wrist during a play against the Wizards last night. And he will be out for 4 to 6 weeks. Do not expect in 2 weeks when I do another power rankings to see this team in here. They're going to slide. And if they don't, I'll be shocked given what this team has done to my mental state thus far. So that's a quick little, if you've watched any of my episodes, you would know my problems with the Hawks so far, especially because I just outlined them in my most recent episode. Number 15, the Rockets. The team that I said could only go at 10 last time is now down at 15. Why is that? Well, they went on a win streak, and then they started to slip a little bit. They're still a very good team. The other teams just all collectively have better records, and I think the Rockets will rise again because they have a really good offense and defense. It's just certain games they make more, inexperienced decisions, and that's cost them in the long run. I've talked about Şengün, how much I like him, and I like Ime Udoka. Maybe not as much as a person, but definitely as a head coach, he's going to get them in the right, and so they slot at 15. Like I said, they will probably move back up in the ranks, but when you lose a couple of games in the last 2 weeks, this just is what it is. Slotting in at number 14, the first team from below the top 16 last time to get into the top 16 this time. The Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron, incredible. Anthony Davis, still a roller coaster. The point of attack defense from Cam Reddish has been great, but injuries, inconsistencies. Also, Austin Reeves has been much better as of recently. That's why I have them here. I want to watch them a little bit more. They're still kind of a roller coaster of a team, but 10-7 puts them in the playoff picture. I have them a little bit lower because my standards are a little bit higher for this team because they should be off to a better. They should have been off to a better start. They've had to play some tough teams, so I'll give them that. But I think the record will start to go up starting now, and they are going to the in-season tournament knockout stages, so that gives me more time to watch this team, and hopefully they progress so that we can talk about them a little bit more and they rise. I don't have too much to say. I still don't love Darvin Ham as a head coach. Like, he's he throws it in the towels some games where I'm just like, what the hell are you doing, man? And yes, this comes down to a lot of the design for the roster is a bunch of shooters around LeBron, and some games they have it and some games they don't. There are other teams with role-playing shooters that are playing better. So I have them at 14. At 13, I have the Miami Heat at 10-7. A lot like the Lakers in a way. This is typically a really good defense in the regular season. That is still the case. The problem here is injuries to Tyler Hero. They lost another role-playing guard out for the season. I believe his name is Drew Smith. Yeah, the main thing here is recently they just lost to New York on Friday in in-season tournament, and then they lost to the Brooklyn Nets last night. So there's a little bit of slippage here after finding some momentum. I don't know. I think they'll constantly be top 16 throughout the year, but I don't really know what to think of this team right now just because it feels like a new experience every time I watch them play. It feels like a different team. So I think 13 is a good spot for a 10-7 team. Slotting in at 12, a team that just recently beat them, that has a 9-6 record, the New York Knicks. My biggest criticism of this team is simply they need to play better teams. They beat the hell out of bad teams, and sometimes they kind of choke or just straight up lose to better teams. They've had a little bit of injury stuff with RJ Barrett, who has been very good for them. They're starting to figure it out. I think there's a couple of teams in this next little bit where I just need to see more from them. And sometimes that's just schedule. So a couple of teams up here that haven't played as many good teams so far. And that is the expense because there's a lot of teams that have played a lot of good games and are way above 500. So they deserve to be higher on the list. The Knicks can move up. I think schedule has been middle of the road for them. They've lost some games they probably should have won. They've won some games that they probably should have lost. So this is solid. I think they'll move up. The hotter take comes right now. So slotting at 11. At 11-5 is the Milwaukee Bucks. And you might be saying, why the hell are they still in the same position? Because I still don't love this team. The talent is immaculate, and the talent is not playing to the level that they should. At 11-5, they beat up on bad teams, and not even that. It's not even that. They kind of play it to the level of competition, and sometimes they win and sometimes they lose. Their offense is only okay collectively to some teams above them that might have a little bit worse records, that either they beat good teams or just their offense is so much better and their defense is like in the same tier of bad as the Bucks. That's all I have to say. I want to see more Giannis Dame pick and roll. Giannis actually could be averaging more. He's just having a little bit of trouble adapting to the new system that Adrian Griffin is implementing offensively and defensively. These are growing pains for this team. I do believe they will move up. It's just going to take a little bit more time. So at number 10, at 10-6, I have the Dallas Mavericks. The reason you might be asking yourself, why are they above the Bucks who have a better record than them? Simple, because Luka has been playing better than Giannis. I'm sorry. Luka has been playing like an MVP candidate, and they also struggle with the same thing. The same thing as the Knicks. They are not they're not the greatest at beating really good teams, but they beat the hell out of bad teams, even though they just lost to the Clippers. The main thing here is the injury to Derek Lively has been very impactful for sure. And I think the other thing is that, just like with the Bucks, one of the weirder things is that Kyrie isn't playing to the level that I think we've come to expect from Kyrie. It's still not bad. It's just not the all-world guard that he is. These things will work itself out, and if not, they will fall more. But I have them at 10. There's a lot of teams here that you can make an argument for the Bucks being ahead of the Mavericks and the next couple, but there's a lot of fluidity here. I just think, from my personal opinion, this is where I'm going to slot them currently. Again, I think the Bucks will move up. I think until Derek Lively comes back, the Mavericks probably will move down. But I just like Luka's play so far this year on an individual standpoint, that I believe in that offense at the end of games a little bit more than Giannis at the end of games. But that's not a big critique of the Bucks or the Mavericks, but I have them at 10. At 9, I have guy who I've been gushing about recently. Some people have issues with that, and that's perfectly fine. I find that this team will probably fall because their offense is not sustainable, in my opinion. But Tyrese Halliburton and the Indiana Pacers are just the 7 seconds or less Suns with a little bit more efficiency and even crazier pace of that. And that's because Tyrese Halliburton is just like this generation Steve Nash, in my opinion, because of how he plays. At 50, 40, 90 currently, Tyrese Halliburton looks all world. But the difference between them and the Mavericks, other than pace, they're both really incredible offensive teams and really bad defensive teams. The Pacers have they've just outplayed better teams like Philly and a couple of others, and that means a lot to me. I also believe that, again, like I said, I think that they got off to a really hot start, and they're going to, reality is going to hit them for a little bit, and we're going to see how they play through adversity. But I think at 9 is the right place to have the Pacers right now, because there's just a couple of teams that are playing a little bit better on both sides. Well, not both sides, but just a little bit better basketball, even if they have the same record. So that takes us to number 8, a team that has the same record, but they got back their major piece in De'Aaron Fox. The Sacramento Kings are playing phenomenal. They just recently beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. They can beat any team on any given night. They are that electric of a team. They've gotten better defensively, and so a lot of respect there. But Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, they're the crux of this team. If they play together, the odds they win skyrocket. I've beaten teams like the Mavericks, beating teams like the T-Wolves. And at number 7, I have a team that could be falling even further. So if you have a problem with where I have this team, I completely understand. I have the Denver Nuggets at 10-6. Now, I just, out of respect for Jokic, put this team here. I think they will fall until Jamal Murray gets back, because it seems like it's Jokic versus the world right now, because Aaron Gordon is not playing to the level that he should. KCP, role players, not playing the level. Michael Porter Jr., Reggie Jackson, and even all of their young role players, they're all just struggling. Like the most recent game that the Nuggets played was against the Rockets. They got absolutely destroyed because it was Nikola Jokic versus the Rockets. Everyone else was just kind of there watching Jokic go off and try his best to keep this team in, and he just couldn't do it. I still think he's the best player in the league, so I have him at 7. But this team probably will fall more until Jamal gets back. So I'm cautiously optimistic about this team, but in 2 weeks they might be out of the top 10. But we'll see. I'm just saying Jokic's the best player in the world. They don't get blown out except for that one game, and I think that is impactful to me. So number 6, one of the biggest risers, the Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker is playing more, and that has made a world of difference because Kevin Durant is playing like an MVP candidate. Their role players are playing very well, and Devin Booker, playing point guard, not his traditional shooting guard position, has been playing phenomenal in terms of playmaking and his typical shooting. These guys are just a dynamic duo. My whole thing has just been, I need to see Bradley Beal on this team, but for what it is at 10-6, they slot in at number 6. It's deserved. Number 5, a team that has risen but will inevitably fall, in my opinion, is the Oklahoma City Thunder. SGA playing like an MVP candidate as well. Chet Holmgren looks like he's going to wrap up really early in the season. Rookie of the Year, defensive monster. And I think there's a case for him to be an all-star this year. We'll see how that all pans out. But there's a little controversy with this team. I'm not going to talk about the controversy until the NBA investigation is over and either a disciplinary action is enforced or if they just kind of don't care about this. Then we're going to have a conversation when the investigation is over, one way or another. But until then, good team that is about to face, let me just pull this up for you guys. My friend who's an OKC fan sent me this. Next 14 games, I believe. Played the Wolves, the Lakers, the Mavs, the Jazz, the Kings, the Nuggets, the Grizzlies, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Wolves, the Knicks, the Nuggets, the Nets, and the Celtics. That is a lot of really damn good teams in the next 14 games. If they win more games than they lose, specifically against the good teams on that list, they will be rising. The odds are probably not in their favor, to be honest. They do kind of they have struggled against some very good teams, but against the 76ers last night, they really put up a fight to try and get back in the game and almost win, or at least take it to overtime. So that was something that made an impression on me to put them at 5 instead of just move them up one spot to 6. At number 4, one of the biggest risers, the Orlando Magic. Suffocating defense. With Markelle Fultz out, the guard play has actually risen, and I think that's because the team now, like the positions at guard, have a better understanding of a more defined role. Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, and even Gary Harris, those roles have been defined a little bit more, and that has helped excel them to wins. They have lost one game since Markelle Fultz got injured after the Mexico City game a couple weeks back. So huge. One loss in 2 weeks, that's huge for them. So they slot at number 4. They could maybe move up if the guard play gets even better, but again, the number 1 defense in the league, and they don't have a single 20-point per game scorer on their teams. That's phenomenal work. Number 3, the Philadelphia 76ers at 11-5. I almost was going to put them at 1 last time, but they had a little bit of a skid, but they're starting to figure it back out. The main thing here is D'Anthony Melton has been a great role player for them. Tobias Harris has been playing well. Tyrese Maxey has been playing well, and Joel Embiid looks like an MVP candidate yet again. The major thing is that Nick Nurse is getting these boys to play more movement style offense. There's more, like, Joel is having more assists, Tyrese Maxey with the ball in his hands, more assists. There's just more, the love is being spread, the ball is being spread, and that has helped them win games. So I really like that, but the top 2 teams are the top 2 teams in the East and the West, respectively. Number 2, number 1 team in the NBA, record-wise, Boston Celtics. The reason I don't have them at number 1, A, I've talked about how I don't love their playmaking, and B, because they're starting to see the injury bug. Kristaps Porzingis is out for tonight's game against the Hawks. Drew is questionable. He was questionable last game, and he didn't play. This is where I wouldn't say make or break the team, but you'll learn a lot if they can win more of these games with these guys out than they can lose. I just don't necessarily see that. I can see them falling a little bit. They're still a really damn good team. I think number 1 in net rating. It's just sometimes you get the feeling, especially when a game is close, the half-court offense just kind of loses their mind, like forgets how to play basketball. And that's been my problem with them, and that remains my problem. But the record, the wins against really good teams, these all matter. But the team that beats the most good teams in the league comes in at number 1. Yes, sir, the Minnesota Timberwolves, number 1. They don't have the number 1 defense anymore, but their offense is much improved now in the past 2 weeks. Anthony Edwards is playing like an MVP candidate. Karl Anthony Towns has been an enlightenment offensively and defensively. Rudy Gobert is back to his DPOY level of defense. Jaden McDaniels, he's one of my favorite perimeter defenders in the league, or wing defenders in general. Mike Conley is one of the best role-playing point guards at his old age. One of the best picnic setters in the league is the best way I'd put it. He just helps create plays, and then the depth of this team is really good. Naz Reid is great. And yeah, that's really it here. They just have won against a lot of really good teams. At 11-4, they slot in at number 1. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. We'll be back with power rankings in 2 weeks, but otherwise we're going to get back to just doing the normal videos as per usual. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on this list. I'm sure this will bring a lot of opinions, and I'm open-minded to hear what all of you guys have to say down below. Give it a like, give it a sub. If you're an audio listener, rate, listen, and I will see you guys tomorrow we'll figure it out. Peace.